Hi, I'm Jeff Knox, Educational Counselor at Prep Matters. Let's talk about one of the most important components of a school application, letters of recommendation. Here are some example comments from teachers that admissions readers run into fairly often. Betsy is a consistently courteous and hardworking student. Keaton is well liked by all his peers, and his high-level performance indicates a promising undergraduate career. These are pretty typical statements, and you'll find them in thousands of letters of rec written by teachers and guidance counselors across the country. And that's the problem. They're typical. Letters of recommendation are an essential and often required component of your school application. Their role should be unique among the other parts of your application, just like your transcripts, your test scores, and your resume have unique roles. But how do you ensure your letters of rec are unique? Let's back up and start with 3 questions that you should consider when planning your letters of recommendation. 1, whom should I ask to write these letters? 2, how should I ask my recommenders to write them? And 3, when? When is the good time to ask that my letters of recommendation be written? Let's start with the first question. Who should write these letters? Teachers who know you. Ideally, the teachers who know you are the ones teaching rigorous academic courses, AP courses, IB courses, or honors courses, and ideally they've gotten to know you relatively recently, like in junior year, or perhaps they've taught you for multiple years, like a foreign language teacher. And ideally, it's a teacher who has seen you engaged in academic content. Teachers aren't the only ones who will write you a letter of rec. Your guidance counselor, for example, will definitely write one, and it's okay to ask people outside your school to recommend you. But even a teacher who meets all of these criteria may not write a letter of rec that pops out among the rest. And many of you may be thinking, geez, my guidance counselor might like me, but she doesn't really know me. Some of the most common misfires that can happen in an application is when the letter of recommendation is either replete with positive generalities that can be said about any kid. Caesar is well liked among his peers, for example, or, oh, he participates often in my class. Or when a letter simply just restates information that can be found easily elsewhere in your application. Ferguson has a 4.0 and he's involved in a variety of school activities. Those sorts of recommendations often make little to no impression on the admissions committees. So part of your job is figuring out what role your letters of rec should play in the overall package, application package you're going to construct, a role that isn't already taken care of by something else, like your transcript or your activities list. But wait, how can you control what's in your letter of rec, or even be sure what teachers are writing? You signed the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act, aka FERPA, which means you've waived your right to see any information your schools submit about you to other institutions. That includes your letters of rec. In other words, you're not allowed to see what teachers and your guidance counselors write about you. That brings us to the second question. How should you ask? Here's what I suggest. At some point, there will be a moment with you when you formally ask your teacher to write a letter of recommendation. After they say, yes, of course. Oh, and by the way, a teacher who is not comfortable writing a letter for you will hopefully tell you that right out. So after they say yes, thank them and ask whether it's okay if you send them a quick email or schedule a brief chat about a few points you were hoping he or she would make in the letter. As a former teacher myself who has written plenty of letters of rec, I found that bullet points from students were extremely helpful. Remember, teachers are busy, much busier than you may realize. They sincerely want to help, but writing your letter of recommendation is probably not at the top of their priority list. So any guidance you can give them that will help streamline their efforts will almost certainly be welcomed. Some teachers routinely ask students for extra information, like resumes, to give them context into who they are, who the students are outside their classrooms. But in my experience, a reiteration of your resume in the form of a letter of recommendation doesn't really help. It doesn't give colleges any more insight than your activities list or your resume already does. If your teacher is willing, try to have a dialogue with them about the letter they're going to write. Discuss with your teacher what you love about their subject or their class. Reflect on specific moments you had together while going over a difficult test or staying after school to work on a project. That's assuming you've had those moments. Which brings me to question 3. When should you ask a teacher for a letter of recommendation? Teachers need time to write these. Newsflash, yours is not the only letter that he or she is going to write. I suggest giving teachers at least 1 month's advance notice, but really you should start before then. It's important that you identify the people in your network who are going to help you through this admissions process. The sooner you start to cultivate relationships with your teachers, your guidance counselors, and others outside your school, the more specific and colorful your letters of recommendation will be. So start today. Remember, gratuitous praise, even when it sounds really good, won't interest admissions readers. They've read it before. Help your recommenders recall authentic stories about you. And it's okay, even good, for teachers to point out challenges you've overcome in their class or retell colorful anecdotes about interactions they've had with you, or describe a specific assignment you're particularly proud of. You don't have to be portrayed as this perfect A+ student who gleefully hands over an apple to your teacher every day. This is yet another chance for schools to get a sense of who you really are. So let these letters humanize you against the cold, objective stats that schools are going to be considering while making their admissions decisions. And also, let it be against all the predictable letters of rec from other applicants that the admissions people will come across. Don't be shy, be proactive. Don't just ask for a letter of rec, say thanks and walk away. Have a real discussion with your teachers and guidance counselors about these very important documents. And have that discussion early. Teachers usually want to help their students and greatly appreciate it if you make the process easier for them. Finally, and this is important, once they've submitted their recommendations, thank them afterward with a handwritten note, and I mean it, handwritten. All right, that's it. If you have any questions about what I've said, feel free to contact me at prepmatters.com. Good luck.